Stephanie Dobson is back with us this week. Stephanie is a lawyer and mediator at Hankin Divorce Law and Mediation here in Lloydminster, back for another episode of Healthy, Thriving Family After Divorce. And Stephanie, we are wrapping up our theme for the month, which has been child support, talking today about retroactive child support. So let's get into it and start off by explaining what exactly this is.
Well, Stacey, I thought this would be a really interesting topic because back in 2020 and 2021, so in the heat of COVID, the Supreme Court of Canada actually revisited this issue afresh after the original principles of retroactive child support were created by the Supreme Court back in 2006. So retroactive child support is child support that's ordered to be paid for a time that's already passed. So this is distinct from what we call arrears of child support. So arrears of child support is child support that's already been ordered that hasn't been paid, the amount that's been ordered that hasn't been paid. Retroactive child support is actually an adjustment to that order, an adjustment to back pay. So where there's been a material change of income level, the parent who pays child support, the law says that paying parent needs to change their child support accordingly. Where that doesn't happen, that paying parent could be ordered to pay child support based on an underpayment of a past amount. So for instance, if a parent was supposed to be paying $800 a month, but they actually should have been paying $1,000 a month, then that retroactive amount that the court could order is that $200 a month times however many months they've been deficient.
So how far back can you go when you're looking at claiming retroactive child support?
This is the $1,000,000 question. So this is a very gray area of the law, but there's been some principles courts have put out there, and especially in this more recent Supreme Court of Canada case. So there's a few things to think about with respect to the date regarding how far back we can go. So there's the general rule, and then of course there's the exceptions. So first, let's start with that general rule. So there's a presumptive date that's been established by the Supreme Court of Canada, which says that we typically would go back to what we call the date of effective notice, and no longer than 3 years prior to the date of formal notice, which would be by commencing proceedings. So what does effective notice mean, and how do we give that? So that's really an indication given by the recipient parent that they want to revisit or renegotiate child support. So to prove such notice, it just has to be in writing. So an email, a text message, nothing complex, just something to say, I want to look at this again. In the context of a paying parent who's seeking to decrease support, they changed their job and they're not making as much money, where there wasn't as much overtime or something, effective notice by the paying parent would need to include that proof of the income reduction, not just saying, a text message saying my income's been reduced. So that's the general rule. Now let's look at the exceptions. So there's been courts at all levels across Canada who've looked at this idea of the how far back we go. But this 2020 and 2021 cases at the Supreme Court of Canada said that there might be exceptions to this general rule of the effective notice to go back even further. So there's certain factors, of course, that's what the court does. They come up with factors that court would look at to determine how far back. So let's talk about them. There's 4 of them. So the first one, the recipient parent's reason for delaying their application to actually have the support increased. Second, the degree of the paying parent's blameworthy conduct. So did they kind of evade the recipient, or are they upfront and saying, yes, this is my income level? Third, the circumstances of the child. And fourth, the hardship to the paying parent. Simply put, the court is not very tolerant of delays in adjustments to child support. So it's really important that people keep up with their support numbers.
Stephanie, are there any strategies that can be implemented to avoid some of these issues with retroactive child support?
Well, these numbers, as you can imagine, can be really significant. I mean, even $200 a month times, 3 years, that can be a significant lump sum. And it can also be a struggle for the recipient who struggled for years and had to try to fight for the amount that is owing to them by law. So there's been a positive obligation through the court, all these different court rulings, there's become a positive obligation on parents to exchange income levels at least once a year. So of course, you always need to look at it again if there's been a change to your income level, but at least that once a year, once every 12 months, you tend to look at this, the income levels between the parents. So my recommendation is every year in the spring, taxes are done, have a look at each other's taxes, and then you can determine, is the difference in income enough to warrant that change to child support?
All right, Stephanie. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you chatting with us, and we will be back with a new topic next week.
Thanks.